Wow, that was really loud. Okay, now let me turn myself up too, because someone told me that my volume is a little low. So this is high as it'll go. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I am on my earbuds here. So, okay. All right. Let me just do that a little bit so you can actually see my table. All right. So welcome to my kitchen. This is my kitchen. Now my head's cut off. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that's better. So this is my kitchen. This is the smallest room in my house, actually. And it is where both me, definitely me and my whole family spend a lot of time right here at this kitchen table. So the purpose of today's kitchen session is to show you a few examples of whole food bowls. So if you're working with me, you might have gotten that guide or protocol on whole food bowls. And if you haven't and you're interested in having access to that, just let me know. You can respond to any email you get from me that you're interested in getting access to those resources. But you also can just follow along. It's pretty easy to follow. We are making two different whole food bowls. And Ayurveda teaches us, I think that the main principles of Ayurvedic nutrition include seasonality, eating what is in season, what is right, and that is in general what is right for your body. And it is in rhythm with the current season. So that's what we want. We want to eat with the seasons, if at all possible. Also to eat whole foods. And that's really what this is all about, is incorporating more whole foods into your diet. So really at its core, Ayurvedic nutrition is like going back to basics. It's whole foods and it's following the seasons. Things that are very popular now. You know, this nutrition has been taught for thousands of years. And so we see how it is fad free. I don't think whole foods and seasonal foods are really ever going to go out of style. So let's get started with our first bowl. And then just as an overview, we're going to do a plant-based bowl and then a bowl with some animal protein in it as well. Let's start with a veggie bowl. This is inspired by salads that I had in Europe, specifically in France and Spain, and they would be called ensalada mixta. And so it's basically like a mixed up salad, and most of it is it's veggies and greens basically. All right, the base of the veggie bowl is quinoa, and I did make this quinoa yesterday, but quinoa cooks so quickly that you could make this as you're coming up with the rest of the ingredients. I'm going to switch to my other camera. I'm going to up that up just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to switch over and I'm going to pin my, pin my phone that is over my table. Okay. Okay. All right. So I hope you can see that. You're welcome. If I'm asking questions, you're welcome to unmute momentarily so you can answer me like, hey, can you hear me? And hey, can you see my kitchen table? Or if you don't, let me know, certainly. Anyone who's attending live is really helpful in terms of helping with, just getting things right for the session. So here's my bowl of quinoa that I've prepared already. This I did in my Instant Pot, and if you make it in your Instant Pot, it is super fast. This cooks in about 10 minutes from start to finish. And what I'd like to do when I'm cooking grains is to add a little bit of legumes. So this has some red lentils in it. And in the follow-up email, I'll make sure that you have all the recipes and the measurements if you want to come up with this quick and easy quinoa. Again, it's just quinoa and red lentils and water. And you don't really have to season it because you can season it later on when you use it. So that's my base, is the quinoa. And it's high in protein, and the inclusion of the lentils is going to make it a complete protein. So that's really important to remember, especially if you're on a plant-based diet, is to make sure you are getting sufficient nutrients. So as we're building our bowl, I'm going to add the ingredients. So a little bit, and start with a little bit of quinoa at the bottom. One thing I see commonly is filling the entire bowl with the grains. Let's make lots of room for all the other ingredients. So that's just the foil, really. So now we're going to add some cooked components to the salad. And this is what really makes an Ayurvedic bowl. We have a combination of cooked and raw ingredients. So I have my quinoa in there. I also have these beautiful cooked greens. So I cooked these right before session. This is kale from my garden. One of the great things about having kitchen sessions in the summer is that I get to share all this wonderful produce that I get from our backyard garden. And you don't need a huge lot. We're here in the city of Milwaukee, and we have a big enough plot to grow some vegetables, and we get wonderful bunches of kale every year. So I've sauteed this kale in ghee with some digestive spices. And if you can see those seeds, they're coriander seeds and cumin seeds. That's going to help you digest pretty much everything in this bowl, but it's particularly helpful for greens because the plant cellulose can be a little hard to break down when they're raw. So cooking is definitely a good start. And then adding the digestive spices and the ghee as well will also be helpful. So I am going to add some of those beautiful greens to my bowl. And you could go crazy with greens, but I'm going to leave it there. I also have, let's see, what's next? I also have this lovely corn. So this corn was actually grilled the other night. So I am using some leftovers here, full transparency about that. And that is okay as long, I feel like it's okay if it's not too old. Once vegetables or any food for that matter gets really old, it's going to lose nutrients. So you'll want to use fresher ingredients as much as possible. Something that's a day or two old is probably okay, but once it goes beyond that, it's really not going to have as many nutrients. So I'm going to use some of my, I have a spoon around here somewhere. I'll just use the fork. The nice thing about adding all these different components is the color. Look at how colorful this bowl is already. So I've added my grilled corn. I love that. Grilled corn, cutting it off the cob is so flavorful. I also have some cooked green beans. I also got these from my garden, and so we'll add a few of those as well. And I just parboiled these in a little bit of salted water, and that's it. So with these bowls, if anything, there's some prep work, not a ton of cooking, which is really perfect for summer. Okay, now for some healthy fats, I'm going to add olives and avocado. Now I've cut my avocado in half already, but I'll show you a quick and easy way how to scoop the avocado flesh out. Now some people say that, you can peel this. That's a little picky for me, so I'm just going to cut the avocado right in the shell. I hope you can see this. Has anyone tried this? Anyone have trouble with avocados? I'm gonna use my spoon. You see how I'm inserting it in between the flesh of the avocado and the skin. And all I have to do is dig down and scoop. This avocado actually is not very ripe. I just got it yesterday. The ones that I had were like way too soft. Actually, I forgot one thing. I'm just going to throw that in there. One thing you can do to make it a little easier if you have an avocado that's not quite ripe is cut it crosswise as well. Okay. Now we can go in there and those pieces come out a little bit more easily. So I'm going to scoop them out. Wow. The avocado is actually pretty hard. So hopefully your avocado's a little softer. And one way you can tell is really just by squeezing it. Let me see if I have another avocado on hand. They'll have a little bit of give. If your avocado is rock hard, then that's a good, oh, here we go. Here's the other half. That's a good sign that it's not ready yet. I could tell yesterday that these were not ready, but I really couldn't find one. Another good telltale sign is if the very top where the this little part is here, the stem, if it falls out or if you can press on it and it's actually a little soft, that's a good sign too. This one fell out, but honestly, it's still really hard. So anyways, that's my little spiel on avocados. Now I can take some green olives, slice those up. This is a marinated olive mix that you can get from your deli counter. I'm going to add those in. Is this looking good so far? I'm getting hungry. Just getting this together. So, this could be the basis of a vegan bowl if you want to eat vegan that day. All right, now I like to add some fresh herbs always. So I have a sprig of fresh herbs, again, from my garden. And what I like to do is just bunch them up together. So I have chives, I have parsley. I'm just going to bunch them up. I might even fold them over. If I have some basil, I'll include that as well. Oh, I need my scissors. No, let me look. Oh, I don't see them. All right, we'll do without. But you can just take a sharp knife and just chop a little at a time, depending on how much you want. Now we're going to make another salad, so another bowl. So I want to keep some of that. All right, but that's a good start. Add those fresh herbs. If you're taking this with you to the office, like I know some of you do, you can prep a lot of these things in the morning, make your bowl in some kind of to-go container and just bring it with you. What you don't want to do is dress it. You'll dress it probably closer to when you'll eat it. And I also don't suggest putting it in the fridge, actually, because that can really ruin the flavor of the vegetables. I would keep it at room temperature. And if your office is air conditioned, it'll be fine. So I say just keep that room temperature if you want it to be a little more flavorful. I also have here some roasted chickpeas. So I'm going to add some of those. Okay. Now these come together really quickly. I roasted these in my cast iron pan, which simulates roasting really well. It just takes a little bit longer, but dry roasting them, and at the end, when they're almost done, they start to shrink and get little brown roasted marks on them. Then I add the digestive spices like cumin, coriander, fennel seed, and then I roast these in ghee. Again, so I like to prepare my veggies in ghee and spices, so that's already in the salad. What else am I missing here? Okay, so we could go with this as a vegan bowl. We could add feta cheese now. If you eat cheese, I know I do. We are in Wisconsin, so we have some of the best cheese here. So add a little bit of fresh cheese to your salad. So any fresh cheese will do. Cottage cheese, goat cheese. I mean, really, whatever you have on hand. And that is a great source of protein right there. Now, if you eat eggs, then we can add maybe a little boiled egg in there. Okay, that is looking awesome. I even have some radishes here. So I'll throw some radishes in there. So think about like having different colors in your bowl and making it really appetizing to you. Now, I do have tomatoes from my garden, these little beauties that I just picked the other day. So these are vine ripened tomatoes. And I tell you, if you're buying your tomatoes from the grocery store, most likely they were picked green. But you can find vine ripened tomatoes. So if you find those, they really taste phenomenal. So if you want to, you can also add a little tomato. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll add that to our other bowl. What else am I missing? Oh, yeah. So we haven't gotten to the dressing. Yeah, but I have some sauerkraut, fermented sauerkraut with beef. And so what this is chopped cabbage, kind of like coleslaw style shredded cabbage, I should say, with beef. Those are grated beef. And this basically ferments and has been fermenting in my fridge for a couple of weeks, and it's perfect. You can see that the cabbage has turned completely red. It's a little sweet because of the beef, and I really, really like that. So this is a great way to add a little bit of fermented vegetables to your bowl, and I suggest that pretty much year round, to add just a little scoop of fermented veggies to your bowl. So it can be plain sauerkraut, and you can buy this from the grocery, certainly, but the kind of sauerkraut or fermented vegetables you're looking for are the ones that are lacto fermented, naturally fermented, not just a vinegar mix or concoction. So that's really important, and that's going to support your gut microbes every single day. I have an herbal teacher who's Korean, and she's like, yeah, we eat kimchi every day, sometimes with all of our meals. And so every meal they're getting a little bit of those probiotics, right? That's the contemporary word for that, but really it's a digestive. Ayurveda would see that as a digestive. And because it's summertime and they are on the heating side, we might not do a ton, but definitely have a little scoop in there with your salad. I think that's actually it. So what do we think? How's that looking? I wonder if I can zoom in a little bit. No, I can't. Now, we haven't talked about dressing. Some of these things are already dressed because they have ghee and spices, salt and pepper on them already. So those things and the marinated things will already be pretty tasty. Now I'm just going to do a really generous drizzle of olive oil. Did you see that? Did you see how much olive oil I put on there? When I was in Europe, when I saw that, I was shocked. When I saw my host creating a salad, I thought, oh my gosh, that is so much olive oil. And you know what? It's because their olive oil is so tasty. It's really all they need. So really all you actually need is a really good drizzle of your favorite olive oil and a good couple dashes of salt. So if you're not on a salt restrictive diet, if you're not on a hypertensive diet, then you can be a little bit more generous with the salt. The salt and the oil will actually make this digest a little better. So I'll bring it a little closer so you can see all the goodies in there. If you want, you could put your favorite dressing on here, and that would be fine. I'm just saying, once you start digging into this bowl and mixing it up, almost everything is pre-seasoned. So it's going to be delicious. It's going to be delicious. So try it. And then if you feel like it really needs a dressing, you can put something on there. Okay, so that is bowl number one, our plant-based ovo-lacto vegetarian bowl. All right. Now we're going to prepare for our other bowl. I can't wait to eat that. I told my husband, we get to eat the spoils from my kitchen sessions today, and he was so excited. All right. So now we're going to look at a salad that, or a bowl that is based on some greens. So here I have some chopped romaine. This is not from my garden. Unfortunately, by the time July comes around, all of our lettuces are spent, and we eat fresh lettuce out of the garden all early summer, but by July 4th, they're done. They're done. And, you know, for some reason, our second crops never really turn out great because the birds eat the seeds. So first thing I'm going to do with these greens, this is just romaine, is give them a really good dressing. So again, really douse them with good olive oil. You know, look at your olive oil sources, make sure they're bottled. You know, look for the ones that are bottled in Italy. Greece olive oils are also really good. Let's see, where's my salt? I'm going to add a really good pinch of salt here. And again, I was shocked in Italy specifically how much salt they use in their greens, but honestly, it tastes so good. The salt and the olive oil, honestly, is all you need. If you want, you can do a little dribble of your favorite balsamic vinegar or apple cider vinegar, but very, very little, maybe a little squeeze of lime or lemon, but that can make it too acidic. And in the summertime, we don't want a lot of acidic foods because that can make us feel hotter, right? So remember, we're always trying to balance with the energy of the season. So if it's really hot, then we want to eat more cooling foods. And greens are great because they are very cooling. But they can be a little hard to digest. They can make us a little gassy and bloated. And so we're going to add a really good dressing here to help out with that. I do really like apple cider vinegar, and so I might drip just a couple of drops in there, but I'm not going to do that today. Again, I don't want to make it acidic. Now I can go ahead and add some veggies right into my salad. This might just become our bowl right over here. This is really just an element. So what I would do for my family is to make a spread and put like a green salad out there with everything else, like olives, some good sourdough bread. Ooh, I have a little basil here. I'm gonna put that in there. Okay, so that's our, oh, and our herbs. Can't forget the herbs. There is nothing like fresh herbs in a salad. If you want your salads to be more flavorful, just go out and get some fresh herbs. Grow some herbs on your windowsill in your garden, and you'll be so happy all summer long. And it smells wonderful. All those herbs are going to help with the digestion of those greens. Okay, so I'm just going to use this bowl. So that looks beautiful. I am going to add some tomato here. Oh, these tomatoes! My husband and I ate these with our dinner last night, and they are just to die for. Now I'm only going to put a little bit in there, because tomatoes are acidic, so they're not going to be the main attraction. They're just going to be a little side there. Now I might also want to do, I don't know, we could do some green beans in there. We could do a little corn too, right? Remember to make it colorful. Okay, what I have for this salad is some grilled chicken breast. Now I bought this at the grocery store. You can buy pre-prepared chicken. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have time to make it fresh, great. But if you need a shortcut, here it is. And honestly, I love getting this because it's quick, it's easy, and they do a really good job. Chicken is really hard for me. I am a recovering vegetarian, and so the chicken comes out dry. So they do a really good job. So I just buy it, and not all the time, but usually, actually, we usually get rotisserie chicken because in the wintertime, especially, I like to take the leftover bones and everything and make the most beautiful chicken stock. But in the summertime, I might just get the breast, and that's fine. Okay, I have a little leftover tail here, so I'm just going to top that off there. And if I really wanted more protein here, of course, we don't want to overdo it, right? Because protein is very dense nutrition. It's good, and it can be harder to digest. But if you're really hungry, like I am sometimes, maybe we're going to put in a little half of a hard-boiled egg there. And then this one I'm making for my husband. So I'm going to add some olives. He loves olives. We love the whole family loves olives, luckily. And I'm going to chop those up, put those in there. Voila. Voila. I can even take a little bit of, this is Wisconsin made Parmesan. So there's some great Wisconsin cheeses and getting some fresh Parmesan. Of course, it's aged cheese, but it gives it such wonderful flavor. And there's just a little bit in there. I'm going to add a little bit of ground pepper. Everything in this bowl is pretty well salted, but I'll give it a little dash of salt. And again, you know, there's already olive oil in there, but and I think my husband would like some chickpeas. So I'm going to put some chickpeas in there. I love this. Like, you can make these chickpeas and just keep them in your fridge for a few days and add them to your meals. That is so pretty. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to eat. So again, you can add more stuff in here, or you can simplify. Just use what you have and throw it together in a bowl. Dress it well, salt it well, make sure it's flavorful, add fresh herbs. We've got some more here, and you'll be in good shape. I'm going to add the rest of the herbs that I have here right on top. Okay, there we go. All right, so those are two whole food bowls that you might come up with for the summertime. And, you know, I think really these work any time of the year, but especially when there's such an abundance of fresh vegetables, it's such a great time to indulge in salad. And remember, add cooked components. It'll be easier on your digestion. Mix it up a little bit. Make sure you have some healthy fats in there too. That will help to digest a lot of those different ingredients. And when we digest our food, our salads better, we get more nutrients from that food. That's really important to remember. It's not just about eating good food, but it's also about paying attention to how well you digest. So I'll give you a little close up one last time. Look at all those goodies. This is actually a ton of food. So, you know, it's okay if you can't finish that. We really live in a supersized culture where we get huge portions. And even the smaller bowl, I might have a hard time eating all of that. So take your time, sit down, enjoy. And I'm going to switch over to my other camera to see if anyone has any questions while I start the cleanup process here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to remove that pin, and I'm going to pin me. All right. Okay. Cool. All right. So if you want, you're welcome to unmute if you have questions for me. Like, what are your biggest obstacles or struggles? And again, just unmute your camera, or not your camera, your microphone. if you don't mind. And, what gets in the way basically of coming up with meals like this? And I could probably guess what some of those are already, but if anyone wants to voice those, I'd love to hear from you. I'm just going to keep dressing my bowls here. See what other things I don't think I can add anymore. I think we're getting to the point where we're a little these are very full bowls. Okay, well, I can speak to a couple of really common obstacles that I hear from a lot in the online community and from my clients. So I think there's this idea that we need to spend a lot of time in the kitchen to come up with healthy food. And as you'll see, I put these bowls together. It took about maybe 10 minutes. The prep probably combined took maybe 15 to 20 minutes before the session just to come up with all of these ingredients. So, you know, simplify, I would say. Simplify as much as you can. It's okay if you have a bowl of cooked spinach and some tomatoes and some grilled chicken breast that you got from the store. That's okay. I
Hello,
wonder.
Heather.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, this is Steve.
Hi.
Just one question. Does it make more sense to like possibly, if you're doing multiple meals, do the prep like say one night a week and then, store the stuff up so you can kind of split that apart and then you just have purely cooking. Would that have you used that as a strategy?
Absolutely. So that's great. I think what Steve's asking about is batch cooking, correct?
Yes.
Um, can we cook some ingredients, let's say over the weekend or on a day off, so you have these things available to you? And the answer is absolutely yes. If that's what works for you so that you can have these healthful foods available to you throughout the week, then absolutely yes. And so once, like on the weekends, you might grill the chicken breast if you're going to do that, or roast it, however you're going to prepare your meat. Maybe you'll boil some eggs. Think about some like simple components that you can do ahead of time that will save you some time. Boiling eggs doesn't actually take much time at all, but for some people, morning time can be a big crunch, especially if you have to get kids to school or if you get yourself to work. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with preparing some of these things ahead of time, or even just buying them store bought. Like you can get boiled eggs at the grocery store. You can get the grilled chicken. So for you, you might be shopping with these things in mind. So thinking about like, what am I going to put in my bowl? What do I want? And sometimes it's fun just to go to the grocery store and see what looks good. If you shop at a health food store that's committed to seasonal produce, they will highlight, I mean, that's what's available, right? My husband and I were shopping the other day and we're like, wait, where are the pears? We couldn't find pears. We love pears. Oh, well, they're not really, and they're kind of done. Um, so, right, they're usually a fall time produce item, I think. But anyways, the point is, you go to a place like that, you'll see things that are in season, and if they look good to you, that's a really good indication. That's something that you can use in your bowl. So go shopping, see what looks good, make sure you have some protein components, make sure you have some healthy fats, things like that. But yes, absolutely. Steve, was that
And thank you.
helpful? Yeah. No, that's great, because many of my clients have the same question. Can I batch cook? And I think absolutely. I do a little bit of batch cooking, especially in the wintertime. In the summer, I'm throwing things together like this for myself and for my family. So I might do a little bit of prep cooking, but on the most part, I'm just throwing things together based on what we have in the fridge and what's coming out of the garden. Like on the weekends, you might like roast your vegetables, especially as it starts to cool off, right? So follow what you want, what looks good to you. And think about some of those simple components that you could throw together. And you might not want to be eating the same thing all week long, right? So don't get enough food to last all week long. Let's say you batch cook on Sundays to have food on Monday, Tuesdays, and then you Wednesdays too, maybe, and then you batch cook again on Wednesday. I like to do a midweek, and then you'll have fresher food for the end of the week. Because remember, if that food sits around too long, number one, it might give you indigestion because it's old food, and it might not have as much nutrients. So just keep that in mind. And even if you do like your bowls the first part of the week and then you run out of ingredients and you're, turning to something else, I think that's great effort. So give that a try. But that's why the ingredients that I use today are very summer oriented and great components just to throw together, just as you might throw together a salad. Again, there might be some prep cooking like, roasting the chickpeas or sauteing the kale. But again, those things don't take too much time. That's a really good question. I think it's good to talk about how not everyone has the time to come up with fresh meals every day, correct? So I know that's the gold standard in Ayurvedic nutrition is to get as much fresh food as we can every day because that's going to have the most nutrients and the most intelligence, as we call it in Ayurveda. We get all the intelligence from the prana in the food, and that feeds our prana. So if you want to talk about Ayurvedic principles, food has prana, just as we need to replenish our energy or our prana. And the older it gets, the less prana it has. I was talking with a client about the three gunas, the trigunas, and there's sattvic foods. So fresh foods are very sattvic. Spicy foods might be a little bit more rajasic. Raw vegetables, a little bit more rajasic. Rajasic are things like caffeine and alcohol and things that are overly stimulating. A little, in moderation, I think that's okay. But again, that's moving away from sattvic. The idea is to eat as much sattvic foods as you can because that keeps our prana, our energy, sattvic. And what is sattva? Sattva is this clear energy, bright, positive. That is sattva. That's sattvic energy. On the other side of the spectrum is tamas. Tamas is heavy, slow, maybe even leaning towards the negative side. And this is how our food can actually affect our moods. It's the quality of the prana that we're getting from our food. So if we have really old food that's really hard to digest, and then we eat that food, we in turn may feel tamasic, where we feel kind of like heavy and slow, maybe a little brain fog, maybe a little on the negative thinking side. So the aim is to eat more sattvic when we can, whenever we can, and to reduce the amount of tamasic foods. Rajasic foods, I think, are just going to happen. They are stimulating, but sometimes rajasic foods can be good for digestion because they're firing up your digestion a little bit. So some rajasic foods are good, like some spice and some acidic foods and things like that. So yes, that might be helpful too to be thinking about when we're thinking about the age of our food, the quality of our food. If a packaged food is sitting on a grocery shelf for months, how much prana do we think that food carries? Maybe not very much. maybe not very much. So we're really talking about fresh foods as much as possible versus packaged foods or processed foods, I should say, to be more specific. Those processed foods are manufactured. Sometimes they're not made from whole foods. They're made from food-like substances or substances that are allowed in our food for some reason that are really not food, but they're additives, they're preservatives, they're added to our food for some kind of commercial value. The food lasts longer, or it tastes better, or it looks better, right? Think of all the coloring and the preservatives that are added to our food. So, yeah, I mean, think really about eating whole foods. And this is what whole food bowl concept and meal plan is all about, is incorporating those whole foods into your diet as much as you can. And then the concept of a bowl is that, and this is actually a pretty big bowl, is more aligned with what your stomach can actually handle. If you hold your hands together like this and kind of make a bowl shape, that's pretty much as much as your system can take, your stomach. So, and remember, we might want to have little sips of something with our meal, and we want a little bit of room in our stomach so the stomach can do its job and churn all of our food and start to digest the food. Digestion begins in the mouth, obviously, and then it moves on to the gut. But that's a really important process. Digestion. If you're new to Ayurveda, digestion is a really big deal. So we covered lots of different topics here towards the end. Does anyone else have any other questions? I'm going to start nibbling because I'm getting hungry. We talked about meal planning, well, more like batch cooking. But I will say, before we close up, that it is absolutely worth it to plan at least some of your meals. You don't need to plan all of them. That can be so overwhelming. And remember, at some point during your week, you're going to end up, meeting a friend for lunch or going out to a movie and having popcorn or whatever it is, right? So give yourself some grace. We can't plan every meal every day, but at least have ideas for a couple of your meals, right? Or a couple of these bowls. Think about, like, what do you want in your bowls this week, and then plan maybe for 2 different bowls. That would be a really good place to start, or just start with one, right? 1 or 2 bowls. Write out the ingredients that you want for those bowls. Go to the grocery, get those, make sure you have them, get all your fresh produce, and then let your creativity take over when it's time to start throwing things together. So I love this concept because it's very flexible. It's not really a recipe. It's an approach. It's a concept to use with whatever you have on hand, and to bring it together with some cohesiveness. And hopefully that can help you feel more energetic to have these whole foods in your bowls. Okay, well, that's what I have for you today. If no one else has any further questions, of course, you can ask me questions. In the follow-up email, you can just reply. But in the follow-up, you'll get the recording. Anyone who registered will get the recording. And then I'll try to include some of these ingredients that we worked with today, and also some of the simpler recipes, like how to roast garbanzo beans, or how to saute the kale, or how to, the kale with the digestive spices. And then also the quinoa. The quinoa is its own recipe as well. Okay, we're going to call it a day. Thank you so much for joining me in my kitchen. I hope this was helpful. This is really where it all happens, right? We can learn all this stuff about Ayurveda and it sounds great about Ayurvedic diet nutrition, but how does it really come together? And this is a very East meets West approach, which is really what I do. That's what I do in my practice and in my life, because that's who I am. I am East and West. I have Asian roots and I am a Westerner and I grew up here in the Midwest, and I still am connected to my roots, my Asian roots, but I'm very much a Westerner. And so I love this idea of combining the two concepts, and landing somewhere in the middle that makes room for both, right? Again, I hope this is helpful, and I will see you next time. Have a wonderful summer.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, everyone. Take care.